Again, welcome. Welcome to the 2012fat.com. I will be your host this evening. My name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night we talked about morons versus automatons and how there's a real difference between a human being with a soul, who is simply just truly useless and foul, as opposed to a pre-programmed creature, a computer program itself, whose only reason for existing, apparently, is to provoke responses from those of us, you and I, who are living and breathing people, even though we are, right now, apparently trapped inside of an educational learning computer program that seems to have gone horribly wrong. Tonight, I thought about what real democracy is, and how, very simply, we can regain control of our government, our armed forces, and our lives, what is left of them. We are so late in the day for the United States that, frankly, it hardly seems worth doing. But for those of you who still have hope, and I am not one of you, I'm sorry. My days of having hope are long gone. But if you have this urge to try to restore the republic, and we are actually a republic, not a democracy, and the difference is very simple. A republic is representative government. You and I get together with 100 of our pals. We nominate someone to represent us, and that person speaks with one voice, ours. So one person represents 100. A democracy is where all 100 of us scream at the same time, and we all want our own way, and we have no consensus. We're basically a riot in progress. That's the difference between a republic, which is what the United States was founded to be, and a democracy, which we've descended into, and this is why nothing gets done. This is why we're in chaos and turmoil. This is why a few really, really clever thugs, a small handful, have seized control of our country because they are screaming that we are a democracy. And in chaos, there is profit, and we are chaos. But again, for those of you who want to try, it's a really, really simple place to start. There's actually another thing we'll talk about later. But the simplest thing is the ballot, the voting ballot. Now, the voting ballot that you last used to vote away your rights as an American in a democracy, as a man, as a woman, as a human being, you voted away your rights to a corporate liar, a mouthpiece of the masters, whether it calls itself a Republican, a Democrat, or a Libertarian. They're liars. And in a democracy where chaos, where mob rule is the order of things, they get away literally with murder. They've murdered our lives. They've murdered our futures. They've murdered our hopes. They're murderers. Now, really simply, we can break this. Now, it's real simple. First, we start with 1, paper ballots. 2, paper ballots counted by hand by local volunteers. And 3, a choice on every paper ballot that has to be there and has to be counted. And that choice is none of the above. So, let's start with the most obvious, paper ballots. The two major companies that provided voting machines, which were old, cheap, broken PCs with no physical, no data security whatsoever, were actually owned by two brothers. Now, both of these two men made statements in national media, and they said, and I quote, "We will do anything to get George Bush reelected." And they did. George Bush was president maybe the first time, but not the second time. Those votes were stolen. It's real simple. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. Now, how'd they do that? Well, these old crappy PCs could be rigged to say or do anything, and anybody even someone with no knowledge of computers at all, armed only with a copy of Hacking for Dummies, could access these voting machines and make them say anything they wanted them to say. There was no way of telling. So, what is the world's best technical solution to this problem? People. In my 25 years in IT, I've spent 98% of my time with people, working with people, communicating with people. Because it's really, really, really simple. IT doesn't work. Our technology, all of our technology, is junk. The only thing that keeps this junk running is people. Not all solutions to our problems lay with computers. I'll tell you right now, I'm in the computer business. I'm telling you. Our solution to most of our problems is us, you and me. And the masters know that. And that's why they dumb us down. That's why they keep us separated from one another. That's why they keep us at their throats. That's why they've got women hating and despising and loathing men in the States. That's why they've got men beaten down and broken and now fighting back. And so the war escalates. Because we are our own solution. And it's too late in the day for us to learn that, but let's give it a try anyway. How about we go back in time 50 years and do what we used to do as Americans? Count paper ballots by volunteers in an open and honest manner. Show those hands. No magicians allowed, no magic tricks, black magic or otherwise, no computer tricks, no Excel spreadsheets. A physical document that everybody can see at the same time in the same way. I've been in IT for 25 years, and I know that the very best database in the world is a piece of paper and a pencil, because it'll never crash. It'll never get a virus, and I can always find it somewhere on my desk. And when I hold it up and show it to people, that one piece of paper, that paper ballot, with writing on it, to a room filled with people, you know what? We all see the same thing. We all see the same thing at the same time. We all see the same thing at the same time in the same way. Nothing is hidden. Nothing can be hidden. Nothing is a surprise. So the first step towards restoring your republic, your country, paper ballots. Next, count those paper ballots. So now I'm going to repeat myself, just in case you weren't listening the first time. Let's go back 50 years and do what Americans used to do. Count paper ballots in an open and honest manner. Show those hands. No magicians allowed. No magic tricks, black magic or otherwise. No technology. No Excel spreadsheets. The very best database in the world is a piece of paper and a pencil. It never will crash. It will never get a virus. And when you hold up that piece of paper, that paper ballot, to a room full of people, we all see the same thing at the same time, in the same way. Nothing is hidden. Nothing's a surprise. So counting paper ballots by local volunteers is step number 2 to restoring your republic. And finally, and maybe most important of all, is a selection on each and every paper ballot that's counted by hand in an open fashion by local volunteers is the option of none of the above. Now, as Americans, we've always had the opportunity to cross out candidates and not vote for any of them. Then what happens? So what? Your ballot is counted as invalid. Your protest is wasted. Your vote is never counted. Said, I don't want any of these lying bastards. I don't want any of them. And when you do that, your vote's thrown away. It's useless. But we will never be a true democracy, a true republic, until each of us has the right to mark a checkbox on a paper ballot that says none of the above, and that is counted as a vote. It has to be there. It has to be counted as a choice, not as an invalid social comment. None of the above must be an option on every paper ballot. Why is that? Because if enough Americans mark their paper ballots with the none of the above box, then that election, that vote, must be run again. And it must be run with all new candidates. All new laws have to be proposed. Of course, this will never happen because our masters trade off among themselves as to which of their mandarins, which of their servants will be the next president, the next senator, the next vice president. So the masters go to a lot of trouble to set up these phony elections, these phony campaigns. It's the masters' thing it amuses them to think that we have a choice. Because our masters cannot permit their property, their cattle, you and me, to say no to either of their candidates. Because that would be way too much like having free will. Truth is, the president's just a puppet anyway, a doll on a string. The masters yank that string and the puppet dances. For the fun of it, watch an old movie. It was banned, actually, in the United States for decades, called The Manchurian Candidate. And not the new one with Denzel Washington. You want to find the 1960s version with Frank Sinatra. Again, The Manchurian Candidate. You will actually see what the President of the United States really is. But on local elections you can get control back. In city elections, you can get control back. In county and state elections, you can get control back. And someday we'll talk about the Articles of Confederation. That was signed, I think, in 1862 or 1864. I can't remember now. Basically, the United States is a collection of sovereign nations. The state of California is actually the nation of California. The state of New York is actually the nation of New York. And the federal government in Washington, D.C. was simply a clearinghouse for commerce. So these two states, these two separate entities, these two separate nations would do business together. Washington, D.C. was never meant to have the power it has today. And certainly not to start wars. And certainly not to butcher people for the fun of it. But the bottom line is, if you want your republic restored, if you want to take control in the time remaining to any of us, the paper ballot, hand-counted, with the selection of none of the above. And I wish you luck, because I personally won't waste my time with this. It's too late. Because as you know, we have a plan. Please, I hope you have a plan. Whether it's surviving the event or surviving the next election. Have an idea, a concept, a piece of paper and a pencil, something, anything, and decide what you're going to do when things go bad. It's no longer a question of if, it's a question of when. For all of us here at the 2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehawk, wishing you a really good day and reminding you to keep a good thought. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel finding his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race, their black magic, captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.